Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. The Roundtable, Sam Bushman, Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com, and Vem Miller with me. Vem Miller's a filmmaker, vision guy, journalist, AmericaHappens.com. Vem says Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco destroyed my life, attacked my family, and put a target on my back. You want to help the lawsuit against Riverside Sheriff Chad Bianco? GiveSendGo.com/defeat Chad Bianco. It'll be in the show notes as well, ladies and gentlemen. Donate liberally. That's the only time we believe in liberalism, is when you donate to our campaigns, because we need the support. Chad Bianco has a long history, ladies and gentlemen, of lies and corruption. Lies to the world. Said, hey, Vem Miller was an assassin. No evidence to that. No charges filed relating to that. As a result of Chad Bianco's lies, Vem has received and continues to receive death threats, an attack upon his name and reputation. Now, here's what's interesting to me. In the beginning, I was kind of like, all right, well, let's find out what's going on here. There's got to be a misunderstanding or something weird that's gone sideways. Let us see if we can help. Chad literally destroyed that opportunity. Why? I don't know. Why Chad thinks I'm against him? I don't know. I offered Chad to come on the radio with Vem if he wanted, or without Vem if he wanted, to tell his side of the story and to document some of the claims he's making. Hey, you know what? If there's fake IDs and stuff like that, you would think that the feds would be interested in that, wouldn't you? Well, they're not. Doesn't look like, doesn't seem like. There's no charges filed related to any of that, and it's been since October. What do we got? October 12th to November, December, January, February, March. I mean, we're 5 months plus in, baby, and there's nothing except for this misdemeanor idea that, he had some guns in his car. Now, I want to talk about the other side of the coin, because I know honest people are saying, well, wait a minute now, Sam, it seems like you're defending Vem. No, I'm not. But when I tried to dig in, why is Chad against Sam Bushman now? What have I done to Chad? All I've done is thought he was a nice guy, good sheriff, and didn't know him that well. But, hey, saw him in the news from time to time. And then I tried to reach out to him to try to mitigate this thing and try to help. You say, well, Sam, what makes you think that you would be of any help? Well, what about Sheriff Mack reaching out? Sheriff Mack helped with Randy Weaver and other cases. He's a law enforcement official that could de-escalate situations. Chad not interested at all. Why? You'd think Chad would jump at the opportunity to partner with people that could tell the rest of the story. But no. So why is Chad Bianco against Sam Bushman? That's what I don't understand. So I'm not against him, but I can't take his side in the story for several reasons. One, he says I'm on the other side of it. I'm not picking any side. Okay? Either Vem tried to commit an assassination attempt or he did not. And evidence will prove that either way. It's very simple. Either he has fake IDs or not. Either, okay, we can go on and on. Either he was a threat or he was not. And I'm telling you right now, the video, when Vem rolls up to the cop station or whatever like that and says, hey, here's who I am, here's what's going on. I mean, Vem's got all that video in his documentary about this. Okay, there's a whole documentary about this, folks. And so I'm just saying, how do you deal with all that? Well, here's what's interesting to me about Chad Bianco's situation now. This has gone viral. The news backed him. The threats are out there. All the stories are there. Now, what Chad's going to do about this, I don't really know. I don't see how Chad can really wiggle out of this one unless the corrupt courts help him. And I don't know if a change of venue would be necessary, or I don't know really what would be necessary. But let's talk about some of the, in my opinion, mistakes Vem Miller's made. I'm just assessing it from the outside. But the reason I want to bring these things up is because I think it's only fair that Vem respond to them. I don't want to just tell you my thoughts, and why not hear from Vem? Let him say what he wants to say. Okay, and then I'd like Chad to do the same, but Chad refuses. But Vem is willing, so here it is. So you know that California is like anti-gun to the hilt. Why would you ever go to California with guns in the first place, Vem?
So the reason I was in California is because on October 5th, I got a tip about 150 semi-trucks and trailers that were transporting illegal election ballots starting in Tacoma, Washington at a port parking lot across California, New Mexico, Arizona, and Colorado. October 5th, the first whistleblower, which is a truck driver, tells me what's going on. October 8th, a second whistleblower comes to the forefront. And they tell me, they send me bills of landing. They send me names, pictures. We do an investigation involving voter fraud teams. Patrick Byrne actually wrote an article about this because he was behind the scenes helping out with this matter. And we find out that the owners of the trucking company that's being used have a criminal history. One of the male owners committed rape 3 times and only paid a $200,000 fine. The female owner was convicted of fraud but also did no time. So it has all the hallmarks of people that are controlled by bad guys. So I drive, essentially I find out there's 2 truck stop locations in California, one in Northern California, one closer to Southern California, where these trucks are supposed to be congregating. So on the evening of October 8th, it was actually morning of October 9th, I drive to one of these locations and I have my firearms in the back of my SUV specifically because I'm going to be in a very dangerous location. And my goal there is to attain DOT numbers and other markings that are on these trucks so we could further this investigation. And so that's the reason why I had my guns. Then the morning of October 9th, I hear about this Coachella Trump rally. I called the head of the Clark County Republican Party, Jesse Law, asking him for some special entry tickets. And October 12th, I drive out to go to the rally. Now, what I need to make very
clear, he gave you the tickets, though.
Yeah, it came from the Trump campaign.
And the reason I mentioned that he gave you the tickets is Vem, and this is the point that I want to drive home. Vem is a known entity, people. Don't act like Vem came from nowhere, like he crossed the border or something. Vem's been known by the Republican Party. He's ran for office. He's been known in circles, and that's why I started out the show first hour saying, look, I haven't been super friends with Vem because we're so busy, but I've known of him. I've seen him at places. He's been at plenty of places as that. He's known of me. I've known of him. So Vem's not unknown to this crowd, and that's one of the biggest mistakes Chad made, right?
Yeah. And so when I go to the Coachella Trump rally, I just want to be very clear here. I never tried to enter a Trump rally with guns. That wasn't even on the map. So I am 1 mile away, 1 mile driving distance away where the private parking lot for the special entries are. Before I even go to the private parking lot entrance. So it was never that I drove up and then some dude asked me. On my own, own will, I drove up to a police officer, or a deputy, I should say, 20 yards from the entrance of the private parking lot. Okay, and the goal there was, I was like, all right, I'm going to tell this guy that I have firearms. I'm going to explain that I'm part of the Republican Party. I'm even going to offer for them to hold on to it, right? And I thought the worst case scenario was being told to make a U-turn, and then I would have to take this 4-hour kind of sucky ride back to home, not having gone to the Trump rally. Okay, so people have said, oh, you did foolish things. You tried to enter a rally. No, the parking lot, and I know this because I've gone to 20-something Trump rallies, the parking lot and the rally location are always 2 separate locations because of bomb threats. And people could bring explosives in their car and do a Timothy McVeigh style bombing.
And we agree, justifiably so, right?
Yeah, justifiably so. So I tell this deputy that, hey, I got a couple of firearms. And again, I'm 20 yards from the private parking lot entrance. I'm not even attempting to enter that parking lot, thinking this deputy will probably tell me, 50-50 shot. He'll either say, okay, just like in Nevada they do, which is, hey, park your car. Obviously don't, take your guns to the rally. And after I park my car, I would then have to walk 0.8 miles because driving, it was 1 mile to get to the rally entrance. When you walk and cut through the field, it was 0.8 miles. So I thought he'll tell me, either park your car and then, don't take your guns out and walk to the rally, or make a U-turn and go home. It wasn't even if thought that something this insane would have happened because it is so insane.
Or maybe we basically put your guns somewhere and you get a ticket and it's kind of like holding your luggage at a hotel or something. Maybe due to the circumstances, they'll be like, hey, we know you're one of the leaders and okay, we're going to maybe something like that can be worked out. Who knows? Anyway, the reason I wanted people to understand that is because I want people to get it. it's not like you just rolled to the rally with guns. That's not really what happened, and that's why I wanted your, discussion point. Doctor, do you want to add to this? When you hear the story, you kind of go, okay, well, you know what? I might not have done that, but I get it, right?
Could I say one other thing? Sorry to interrupt,
of course,
you, Doctor.
Go ahead, and then Dr. Bradley.
I just have to. So since then, while I was in Sacramento, one individual came up to me and said, "Hey, dude, I had guns in my car too, and I just didn't tell the police. I parked my car. I walked 0.8 miles to the rally, and then I walked back to my car and I went home." So there's individuals now that are going to be writing affidavits that they indeed had guns too, because one of the things that Chad Bianco kept saying is he was the only one that was foolish enough to try to bring guns to a Trump rally, obviously avoiding the specificity of the facts in order to use these kind of blanket terms to make me look bad.
Doctor?
Again, I think about Joe Friday in the old 1960s TV show. Just the facts, ma'am, just the facts. And it seems to me like the exposure of the facts is really important on this thing, and I would love to see full disclosure in a courtroom case, in a dispassionate kind of thing where people can say all of this stuff. I mean, honestly, Vem's biggest problem is his honesty, almost, it seems like, in this problem. Everything makes perfect sense.
Well, that's right. If he had not said anything, he probably wouldn't have even had any issues, right?
No, he wouldn't. And honestly,
but he was trying to be candid and transparent and honorable and everything else, and wow.
And I have been in scenarios with the exact outcomes he's just described, and without going into a lot of details, at one point I was entering a military base. I had firearms in the car, as I generally do, and they were not accessible, and they asked me if I had a sure. Well, suddenly it's a federal case, and all of the M16s and everything come out. And there was a major that ended up intervening finally after I'd been detained after a while. Other times, I've just declined to even participate. I mean, I got invited to a George Bush event at one point, and I said, I'm not even going to go to the event because I'm not going to leave my guns outside. And so I don't want to have a deal, so I'm just not even going to participate. It is just the nature of the beast today. And Vem got caught because of his honesty, but when he's able to explain, his intentions, his circumstances, and all of the surrounding issues, it's kind of like, okay, that makes perfect sense. Great.
Now, let me ask you a question, Tim. Did they give you the chance to sit down and explain all this like I'm doing?
No, they didn't even ask me any questions, and people keep asking me that question because they're like, why don't you just tell them? Well, I was thrown in the back of an SUV. It was 110 degrees. I passed out 3 times in the back of that SUV. I was put in a situation which was like horrible. It wasn't my job to think what the cops' jobs are, right? I thought eventually they're going to ask me some questions. They did not ask me a single question. They just jumped to their preordained conclusion. I mean, this was clear to me now that Chad Bianco, and by the way, the one thing we haven't talked about, and I know we're running out of time, is the multiple other times he's done this sort of thing, that where he will endanger lives, he will lie in order to get media attention. So it's very clear that Chad Bianco had an agenda, and investigating, inquiring was not a part of that agenda.
Did you get handcuffed?
Yeah, I got handcuffed. Did you get arrested? Yeah, I mean, they threw me. So after detaining me, and I didn't even know the distinction between those two things clearly was, they handcuffed me first. Then they read me my Miranda rights about 2 hours later. First took me to a holding cell, then took me to jail out there. At the end of the night, I was given a citation, 1:30 a.m. on October 13. And also there's another lie there. All the reports said that I paid a $5,000 bail. That's also not true. I think that was another attempt at them putting false things in the record and saying false things to the media to make it sound like bigger than it was. They just handed me a yellow ticket, and that was it.
And the yellow ticket's what? A citation for a misdemeanor and show up later in court?
Yeah, basically
Is that what
show
it
up later in court. You had 14 bullets in your gun. Your mag was in the gun. Show up later for these 2 misdemeanors.
So
which
release
then,
on your own recognizance is literally same day.
yeah, I mean at 1:30 a.m., which would be the next
Well,
morning,
okay.
I guess. Yeah,
Okay. Within 24 hours, let's say that.
like within. I spent about 5 hours in jail.
Okay. How did everybody else treat you? Is everybody going along with Chad on this? Is there a Stonewall, or are there a few people that are willing to whistleblow and say, hold on now?
Now, remember,
Any break in the wall, if you will?
Remember, our megaphone is basically grassroots and social media. I would say 98% of people, or 90% of people that are actually seeing this, other than Riverside people. Riverside people just refused, and that's why we're trying to remove the case out of Riverside into LA, because we would get a heavily biased jury over there, right? Because then also they're not going to want to pay out of their own pockets whatever award this is, so we're never going to get a good jury there, right? But other than Riverside people, most people that see the evidence basically side on how you interpret the evidence, right? But our megaphone's not that big, He's on Fox News all the time. He's got PR people. He's got millions of dollars behind his campaign. And by the way, he's also using public funds for his campaign. So he has this like multi-billion-dollar apparatus for him to basically say whatever he wants to. We have just the grassroots. So
we also need to mention a lot of these high-profile people like this, when you get to that kind of level in big cities and big positions and everything else. And Dr. Bradley, you might want to respond to this first, and then we'll have Vem respond to it. Oftentimes they have fixers.
Fixers.
Well, yeah, they got people to scrub the the story. They make it look sanitized. They have they spray lavender sprays and serve it on a silver platter or whatever, and make it. They try and discount the gritty truth, if you will. And so there's probably people that are spinning this wherever they can, and like you talk about the Riverside people, perhaps are so closely associated. I mean, obviously he's been elected to sheriff. By the way, interestingly, Sam, he was born in 1967 in Utah, and when he was 22, he moved to California, and that's when he got on the sheriff stuff.
Yeah.
So he does have Utah connections.
He's basically my age, exactly, pretty much. I was born in
so he's
67
got
also.
Utah connections, and so it'd be interesting to see what some of that background story might be too. But that's maybe neither here nor there at this point. But it sounds like to me, again, I keep saying, Vem, this thing needs to be pursued through the system. I applaud the idea of getting the venue moved a little bit for their, the plausible problems that could happen with anybody that was going to hear the case. But, again, just the facts, ma'am, those things need to be exposed, and whatever can happen to allow that to be, run down that path, I think you need to pursue that, and it sounds like you probably are.
Amen.
Yeah.
And a real issue is this, how do you raise the money to take on the big sheriff at this point? That guy's got plenty of cash using all kinds of weird funds for that. Somebody ought to follow the money on that. But if you're a Vem, how do you fight this kind of thing? It's going to take a chunk of change, right, Vem?
Yeah, totally. We have a Give, Send, Go set up, which is here. It's I got to find it. I apologize. I think I'd send you the link, but
GiveSendGo.com/defeat Chad Bianco, right?
Yeah, defeat Chad Bianco. And I mean, this is
and I'll put it in the show notes, too, so people have it in writing. If you go back to LibertyRoundtable.com after the show, it'll be in the notes. Go ahead, Vem.
Yeah, and this is a public issue, right? Because, for a week of a sheriff lying, so much catastrophic damage has been done to my life. And we hear this story over and over again with people that are entrusted with doing the right thing by our Constitution, but they abuse their power. If we don't make examples of people like this, that's why this journey to me is not about making sure Chad Bianco doesn't become governor, because I actually think he has zero chance in California of becoming governor, even if you remove my story out of it. Chad Bianco needs to be held accountable. So this reverberates, everybody else sees it, and frankly, if I win this case, which I believe I'm going to win this case, I'm not a man of luxury. This money is going to be invested largely into releasing media and going after the other Chad Biancos. Because right now we have such an inherently corrupt system, and that stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. That stuff happens because it is allowed to happen. It's not the exception, it is the rule right now. And unless we fix that, we don't have a country.
Dr. Bradley, I think this is something that's an uphill battle on Vem's case, primarily because what they try to do is run you out of money. I mean, this lawfare stuff is a problem. And now Chad's about to unleash the lawfare machine on Vem.
Well, it goes back to that, the gendarmes being on the side of the lawbreakers and the, as we mentioned, the French term, as well as in the old Billy Jack film. When the police break the law, there is no law. There needs to be accountability, and there is. That's the whole reason the First Amendment, well, not the whole reason, but it's a very large reason about the First Amendment existing. Freedom of the press, freedom of speech was vouchsafed in the beginnings of this country to make certain that political wrongdoings, political threats had an opportunity to see sunlight. They needed to be able to see the breath of fresh air brought to the people. And sadly, Americans have been so complacent and complicit in all the things that the real meaning of the First Amendment is lost in pornography and licentiousness and everything else like that. But the real meaning of those aspects of the First Amendment is to make sure that these things are exposed so that they can be corrected so that we don't lose our liberty.
That's what happens on Liberty Roundtable Live on the daily, ladies and gentlemen. Now I want to finish, because we're going to let Vem go at the bottom of the hour here. I want to finish by saying this. I've offered Chad the opportunity to be on the radio with you, Vem, and without you. And I'm offering, even after the fact, for him to change his mind and come back and tell his side of the story. I'll give him as much time as he wants. I'll give him 2 hours, a whole show, just like I've done to you almost. Not quite 2 hours, but are you willing to appear anywhere, anytime, with or without him?
Yeah, 100%. But he won't do that. And, I mean, I think, honestly, he's like right now the leading Republican governor candidate. If you put him in a situation to debate this guy, which that's what it would be, it'd turn into a debate because the facts are true to what I'm saying and not what he's saying. So then it becomes about the myriad of other horrible things he's done. I believe something like that would end his campaign. So I don't think he's going to do it because already, like I said, I have piles and piles of information. One has to just go to AmericaHappens.com. We have 2 pages. One's called The Third Assassin Hoax. There's another Chad Bianco page, specifically the crimes and grievances of Chad Bianco against Chad Bianco. And if you shine light on that, I mean, he's no longer a governor candidate, which honestly, if you're a Republican, you want a candidate that's going to win. And Chad Bianco is not even remotely close to that.
So how do we get him out as sheriff? Is there a recall in California, or what are the options? Just wait till the next election? What can happen?
I mean, lawfully, the Department of Justice and FBI should have. I mean, if I have this much evidence, they should have that evidence. And if they don't, they're welcome to contact me because by law, there's many ways to remove him. Or we wait till the election, but that's just sad that, like, you know, that would be the process because no, he's not going to get elected to be sheriff again. I don't think so. And again, he doesn't have any chance of governor, but we really need to have better enforcement. If this was a January 6th person, they have a huge case built on that person with really no evidence. So if they could do that sort of thing in a rapid fashion, they could go after Chad Bianco with the amount of evidence that exists there in terms of his criminality.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And I know some people would be like, man, why are you guys taking out Chad? Hey, I'm offering Chad the same opportunity. I'm just telling you the evidence as I see it and my research. I submit my research is pretty stellar, though, when I literally send Chad a soundbite of himself saying it was a third assassination attempt, and then Chad saying he didn't say that. You guys go figure, okay? Vem, thank you so much, sir. We'll keep an eye on this case. We will not let it go.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Vem Miller, everyone. Vem Miller. Great guy. investigative journalist, and more. He runs a website called America Happens where you can check out his films and a whole lot more, americahappens.com. Also help him with his fundraising. He's going up against the war machine and lawfare, folks. GiveSendGo.com/defeat Chad Bianco. Hang tight. Liberty Roundtable Live.
How would you like to help this program reach more people and earn silver at the same time? Call or text 801-669-2211 for complete details.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. The latest release of JFK assassination documents may have crossed the line. A bit too much transparency.
Sensitive personal information, including Social Security numbers, was unveiled in the newly unredacted JFK files released this week. Neither the White House nor the National Archives explained the decision-making process behind the public release of the information. But White House officials say a plan is in place to help, including credit monitoring offered by the National Archives, until new Social Security numbers are issued. Greg Clugston, Washington.
President Trump is railing against judges who interfere in White House policy decisions. Mr. Trump calls Judge James Boasberg, a local unknown judge, a grandstander looking for publicity. Boasberg continues pressing the administration for information about deportation flights. Europe's busiest airport, London's Heathrow, shut down by a fire at an electrical substation, snarling the travel plans of hundreds of thousands of airline passengers. There have been more than 1,300 flight cancellations so far today. Canadian investigators say the Delta regional jet that crashed landed in Toronto last month descended too quickly.
21 people were injured when the plane flipped over and passengers were left hanging upside down in their seats. A preliminary report from the Transportation Board of Canada says an alert sounded 3 seconds before impact, indicating a high rate of descent. The landing gear collapsed when it touched the ground.
That's correspondent Tasha Stevens. In Orlando, Florida, it appears a Southwest Airlines flight crew mistook a taxiway for a runway and almost tried to take off. An alert air traffic controller aborted the takeoff just in time. Sell-off continues on Wall Street this hour. The Dow is down 227 points. The Nasdaq off 53. More on these stories at townhall.com.
3 years ago, I wrapped up a run of Annie playing Daddy Warbucks with the South Carolina Children's Theater. I was about 50 pounds overweight, tired, sick, fed up with the way I felt. Hi, it's Mike Gallagher. I had to do something. I scheduled my weight loss consultation with PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. And as they say, the rest is history. Just a few months, I lost over 50 pounds. I took control of my health. 3 years later, I've kept the weight off and I feel better than ever. If you are where I was, do what I did. Call PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. It'll change your life. It's fast, it's simple. They won't let you fail. Just give them a call at 855-696-2020 to schedule your weight loss consultation. That's 855-696-2020. 855-696-2020. Here's the best part. First 11 callers who mention the keyword healthy will get 2 free weeks added to their weight loss package. Don't wait. Call today. 855-696-2020. Mention healthy to get 2 free weeks. Or visit them at myphdweightloss.com. myphdweightloss.com.
Attention collectors and savvy investors. We are excited to announce a momentous evolution in our journey. Introducing Free Water Coin Company, formerly known as Rust Coin and Gift. This rebranding takes us back to the very roots of where it all began. Free Water, Oregon. It's a tribute to the legacy of Al Rust and a celebration of 3 generations of dedication to excellence in the world of coins and precious gifts. Al, Brian, and Jake Rust standing strong through 64 years of service. Discover a world of exceptional service at Free Water Coin Company, your premier destination for genuine, honest money and precious gifts. Under Brian's expert guidance, Free Water Coin Company, building on the legacy of Rust Coin and Gift, continues its tradition of trust and excellence. Visit us at our Provo, Utah location. Explore our treasures online at freewatercoinco.com or call us at 801-377-1574. Free Water Coin Company, where your future is built one honest coin at a time.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcast at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com. Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. It's Dr. Scott Bradley, freedomsrisingsun.com. That's freedomsrisingsun.com, and yours truly on your radio. Vem Miller was with us. My last statement on the Vem Miller situation for this show is this. Our invitation at our expense for Sheriff Chad to join us on the radio with or without them or Mr. Miller is still stands. So there you have it. I'm still offering at my expense to go ahead and let him have his say on this thing. I will not barbecue him. I'll be very fair, very kind, appropriate to the sheriff. I'll let him make his points. I will ask some very poignant questions as I asked of them. And I think, hey, we just drill into that thing and let the sheriff set the record straight. I'm all open and willing to do that. But the sheriff so far is unwilling. All right. One thing Vem said during the show is, hey, we've got a very limited, reach compared to the sheriff. And I think that's true. But I think it's changing fast, way fast. And I'm delighted, by the way. As I've mentioned, the new media is indeed taking center stage, ladies and gentlemen. And we've got more evidence to prove the point. Headline says, podcasting, the new mainstream. And this comes from a group called Podcast Business Journal. Podnews.net is where the details come from. It's a very, very interesting press release they've released, Doctor. What do you think? You want to break that down for us?
Well, I just opened this thing moments ago, as you mentioned it, and I've just done a very superficial review of it, but something pops out to me that I'd just like to, and maybe this is completely off tangent from what you're talking about, but there's a little segment in here, and it's headline, it's not a headline, but it's a kind of a subject matter attention drawer. Public opinion supports social media regulation. They talk about 86% of Americans, 248 Americans use social media, but the second bullet point is nearly half, 48% of Americans express support for banning social media access for anyone under age of 16.
Yeah, now let me stop you there and say I disagree with this a gazillion %, and I think they're peddling propaganda.
Well, here's the problem we've got, is Americans are basically all communists. I mean, that sounds like a really bold, dramatic, even in-your-face kind of statement to read. But most Americans have been fed the Bravo Sierra of the Communist Manifesto in little bits and pieces since they were in kindergarten, and through the media and through political statements and on and on and on and on. And this statement right here smacks of the 6th Communist Manifesto plank: centralization of the means of communications and transport in the hands of the state. Okay, so what we had, and all through the COVID Bravo Sierra, the COVID con that was on, there was a vetting of everything that was said, if you will, online, on the air, and there was a single purpose in propagandizing of the American people to the point that the First Amendment was completely abrogated. I personally had 1,500 videos that were removed because I did not toe the party line. And they're just gone. Poof, everything's gone. And the idea that this kind of stuff can be controlled and contained based upon an agenda and upon an agreement of, in my opinion, it was done at a very, 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 very high level. That this type of constraint, prior constraint and everything else that was put in place to prevent Americans from having ideas of what might be valid ways of treating the COVID con. I mean, that were much more effective and much less dangerous than the approach the establishment had come up with, which continues to vex every part of the world today. We haven't begun to see the downside of that. However, when we have the 50%, well, 48% based on that, Americans want to control the access to information. That is a tragic travesty,
it's a tragic
in my opinion.
reality, but I believe it's propaganda because to me it all depends on how you ask the question.
Of course,
and
it is.
The way they manipulate it is, hey, under 16. So now you get into a discussion of, hey, who should make the rules here? Should parents keep their children off of social media at young ages? Should that be the government's responsibility? And we're basically creating this nanny state where we think it's the government's responsibility to do everything. I think parents just need to control their children's access. If you don't get your kid a phone and if you control and say, hey, you as kids can't have social media accounts. And, I think parents can handle it fine. I've never had a problem with it because I say to my kids, you can't have social media until you're 18 and decide for yourself. And my kids don't have their own cell phones until they're at least, when they're old enough to drive, I get them a cell phone because then, hey, they can at least communicate and get directions and things like that. Before that, in my opinion, they don't need it. And what we had when my kids were little is we had like 2 phones, and they were flip phones, and then kids could check them out when they needed to go somewhere. If they're like, hey, we need a call to get a ride and get picked up or this or that, or then you could check out the phone, and that way, hey, 5 of their siblings use the same phone, and mom can see the phone anytime she wants, and so there's no real way to have your private whatever. And it's a way to control that. And I think parents can handle this just fine. But what you do is you start with saying, hey, can the government control this? And if you say yes, then it's only a matter of what details now. And over time, that list grows as government gets out of control. Give them an inch, they'll take a mile. So to me, there's 2 big takeaways from this thing. 1, the propaganda being peddled here. And number 2, the increase of podcasting being a legitimate mainstream medium. But if we're not very careful, it's going to be controlled all by the few. And that's the risk we run as it grows. And we got to watch both sides of that, Doctor.
Well, absolutely. The fact is we are at a breakthrough time in terms of being able to have a true First Amendment capability. The other hand of that, though, is if you look at what happened with Twitter and with YouTube and all of these other lame brain traditional kinds of exposures that have been emerging lately too, is that they became an instrument of tyranny, and that's the nicest thing I can say about them. There's probably young children listening. They are an instrument of tyranny, and what has happened is that whoever controls, you control the press, you control the education system, you control the future of America. And we need to be very, very careful. And we are a nanny state. Everybody wants to ask permission of government, and you bring up the right solution. The right solution is that families handle their own business. You sweep your own front porch, okay? You control and contain what your children are being exposed to. This idea of turning it over to some all-powerful, all-knowing, omniscient, omnipresent kind of government kind of agency, whether it's an Elon Musk or any of these guys on Google or wherever you talk about them, and the World Economic Forum and the CDC and the media mongers. Think back, Sam, 5 years ago, we were completely controlled and contained. There was an oh, ain't it awful broadcast constantly on your local media. And I check these things out. It's kind of a fetish of mine almost, you could say. the lies, and more darned lies that came out that were unresponded to. There was nobody out there contradicting these things. So
that's
I
because
think
there's no money in truth-telling, Doctor, hardly.
Yeah. Trust me, I'll bet you're not making $50 million a year. I haven't looked at your bank account.
I'm not even making five. I'm not even making two. There you go, right? I mean, I've got 8 kids, and I'm not even making. Me and my wife together, both working, we're not even making $200,000.
Well, here's the deal. In my 50-plus years of fighting for the cause of liberty, I have never, ever, not once, broken even. And that's a real understatement.
I would say I'm in the same boat.
I've never covered the costs. So if I try to put webinars on, if I try to put out speeches, I went up to we don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but I was speaking to a state legislature in another state. One of the people that was in favor of the egregious things that they were trying to propose for that state to adopt came up to me after the event and said, "So who's paying your freight?" I says, "Well, I'm buying my own gas and my own groceries, so what does that tell you?" I'm volunteering an effort to try and preserve liberty. There, as you point out, there's not real money in it. These people that say they're patriots for profits, maybe there are people like that. The Mark Mecklers of the world, for example, that claim to be patriots, that are seeking to overthrow the Constitution of the United States by rewriting it. But the fact of the matter is, there's way too much power.
Roger that. Go ahead and skip the break. And so any other details in this? They say over 55% of Americans are now listening to podcasts. They say audio podcasts are way ahead of video podcasts. I find that interesting.
Well, that's because you can listen while you drive or while you take a hike or a walk or whatever. You don't want to have your eyes riveted on some screen somewhere. But yeah, this is a hopeful thing. But I've got to caution people that everything you see and hear on the internet is not God's truth. and that sounds almost blasphemous to say, but it's absolutely correct. We get so much Bravo Sierra that's fed to us. Just think for a minute, Sam, all of your efforts to try and promote liberty and proper government, all that kind of stuff, you don't think there's not a countermeasure, a counter proposal, a counter voice out there to yours that's equally trying? And
there's more than that. That's for sure. I'm the underdog in this deal, baby.
No question. But I try and get my news sources. I do an awful lot of trying to go out in the world and discover. I use sources from all over the world for information, and you have to kind of put them in the shaker and sort them out and everything like that when you do that. But honestly, I find, this is maybe too broad a statement, but by and large, I find more truth, more freedom of the press, more freedom of speech outside the United States than I do inside the United States, based on the fact that so much of what's in the United States, the Zionist perspective, for example, and the pharmacy perspective, for example, that is just absolutely saturated in the United States, where you have agendas that many organizations, and it filters into our legislative bodies. When their legislature creates law, the culture kind of directs ultimately where the law goes. And our culture is being saturated by very improper concepts that, like this idea that, oh man, half of us think we got to control freedom of speech. That's what that boils down to. And it's like, no. And have people say that, if we have an emergency about, let's declare an emergency about too many firearms. Okay, so now we can control firearms. Oh, how about going out and go to church? Oh yeah, because of a virus. Or going to the grocery store. We have been indoctrinated so thoroughly, and I applaud and I cheer and I'm hopeful with this idea of the social media stuff and the podcasts and everything like that. But so much of it is counterproductive to what will preserve the nation. This is kind of maybe a leap on my part, but I really believe we can save this nation if we'll begin to train our children in history again. The history of the United States based upon that which goes back to the original sources. And there's movements to not even teach history at all in school. Civics, forget it. And I've told you, Sam, about 20 years ago, I was contacted. The Utah legislature was going to have a bill about what principles need to be taught in Utah civics before you graduate from high school. What do they need to digest? Oh, man, I was excited about that. So I put together, I don't remember, it wasn't that many, maybe 30 points, because, you can't take too big a bite, you choke. They could not get 1 point of that passed. That point being the discussion. This was the first one. We are a republic, not a democracy. You could not get that through the Utah legislature, even though you can read it very plainly in all of the founders' words, and specifically in the Constitution and any of the constitutions of any of the states. Not one of them calls us a democracy or claims to be. But the Utah legislators choked on that 1 point. And so our culture has directed us into falsehood, even where we're creating law. And so anyway.
To your point about the legislative bodies, so as you know, I've started to do short videos, ladies and gentlemen. And these short videos are, in my opinion, pretty good. If you go to libertyroundtable.com or lovingliberty.net, you can check them out. On Liberty Roundtable, if you just look at all the different content, you'll see the videos mixed with the talk shows. So it just depends on whatever my latest release is gets put to the top. But there's a button you can click on that says videos. And when you click on that button, then you get a list of videos. And I want to play one of the videos because I think it directly relates to Dr. Scott Bradley's point. LRT short video, Mike Johnson is a dishonest clown as Speaker of the House, and it's got to stop. So I want you to listen to this video, and then you can respond, Dr. Bradley. And I know it's only audio, but audio is king, folks. The podcast statistics show it. So I've found that long-form radio audio is best. Short-form videos do pretty well because they drive content to your long-form. They quickly encapsulate something. So here's this video about Mike Johnson, then Dr. Bradley's response. Mike Johnson is a dishonest clown as Speaker of the House, and it's got to stop. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. I'm Sam Bushman with another Liberty Roundtable Live short video brought to you by freedomsrisingsun.com. Check out the weekly webinars, Q&As on the Constitution from Dr. Scott Bradley, and check out his incredible To Preserve the Nation collegiate series, available at freedomsrisingsun.com. All right, Mike Johnson, ladies and gentlemen, sat behind the president during the presidential address to Congress and backed every move. Mike Johnson emails me over and over and over and tells you how incredible Donald Trump is. Please send Mike Johnson money. Sounds like a preacher almost. It's disaster. They tell you that you need to send your money to God, and they give you their address, don't they? It's a clown show. It's dangerous. It's problematic, and shame on Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson unveils funding bill literally 1 week before potential shutdown this weekend. Failed clown leadership is what I'm calling about it. Unveiled a measure to fund government through September the 30th. A 99-page legislative piece, I guess, is going to increase funding to the military by $6 billion, among other things. Raise the debt ceiling, just out of control. Mike Johnson every time has backed, voted for, and led Congress as Speaker to spend this money. Now he acts like it's the most horrible thing in the world. But he turns around and passes a continuing resolution at the end of 2024. Now he does it at the start of 2025, and he's going to do it again as long as you let him. Shut down government, ladies and gentlemen. Tell Congress to pass single-item bills. And every item must pass legislative constitutional muster. When it does, fund it. When it doesn't, reject it. And open up government one piece at a time constitutionally and be transparent about what you're letting people vote on. Up and down votes on single-issue bills. Be transparent to Congress. Be transparent to the people. The sooner, the better. Otherwise, it's just a big clown show. We pretend verbally that we support decreasing spending, but every vote we deliver proves it's a farce. It's a sham. We need to reject Speaker Mike Johnson. We need to follow Doge and really, truly decrease expenditures, and we need to have accountability. And you start with transparency, and then you prosecute those who are criminals and who are spending money without congressional approval or direction. If you've got money in a big old kitty, a big old slush fund, and you spend it for things Congress did not approve, you should absolutely go to jail. Go look at your Constitution. The House controls the purse strings. And Mike Johnson and clowns following him have sadly failed. Our prayers are that we can change the game while Trump's still in office. I'm Sam Bushman, and that's another Liberty Roundtable Live short video. God save the Republic. All right, there you have it, Dr. Bradley. Your quick response, then one final quick story before the end of the hour.
Good grief, we only got 5 minutes. Yeah, that guy sounds just like you. Can you imagine? No, the facts
because of the video editors, he's better than me.
Oh, yes, he really. Anyway, no, the facts that you speak there are absolutely essential that Americans begin to understand again. They really are required to pass at least 12 budgets. Okay, they break them in. You wanted single item budgets, and that would be wonderful, but 12 is what they're supposed to do. And they won't do that. And so there has been nothing to this point. All the DOJ findings are smoke and mirrors because the legislative has not taken them and passed them legally. Article 1, Section 7 about how you make a law. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 says the only thing you can spend is what's legally authorized to be spent. They have not changed anything. Everything that DOJ has come up with, if there's billions or trillions, it doesn't matter because at this point there has not been a legislative enactment that corrects those things. So yes, the legislature really is complicit and compliant in all of the things that they're trying to pour our taxpayer dollars out the window, and our legislature is responsible to fix this. And so far they have not. All they've done is kick the can down the road to September 30th.
Yeah, so here's the proof in your point about DOJ, and I appreciate DOJ exposing things. Now we need Congress to back the play here to get it done. But here's what DOJ did. DOJ emailed me, and they said, Sam, we want you to take a survey. And so my headline is this: Clown question from DOJ. Here's what they asked me. Sam, should Trump go after the BATF? Are you kidding me right now? At this stage in the game, you're going to ask me if they should go after it? No, you shouldn't go after it. You should absolutely shut down and prosecute. Don't just go after. Shut it down and prosecute because it has no constitutional authority. It's judge, jury, and executioner. It's criminal all the way through. The BATF is a sham. You're literally going to email me and say, hey, we got a questionnaire for you. Should we go after DOJ? It's a clown question at this point, Doctor.
Well, actually, these are fundraising messages to you, and people get this reaction. They say, oh, my goodness, yes, let me send you money. We're going to help with this. No, it is simply it's a sham and a scam to get money sent into them, and a lot of people fall for it. I mean, it's kind of like change you can believe in, the old Obama slogan. Everybody reads it the way they want.
The only change I believe in is called repentance, Doctor.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your other issue? I know we're getting short on time. Oh, that's
the DOJ one. Because DOJ is literally asking me questions like this. Like, do they need a poll to find out what they need to do? Look, the Education Department. Donald Trump signed a big bill or signed a big old, executive order to shut down the Education Department. You know what? I commend Donald Trump for trying to say that he's aboard. Send me legislation, I'll sign it. But until Congress doubles down, it's worthless. It means nothing. Won't happen. It'll be overturned if enacted at all. So you need Congress. Well, Mike Johnson is slow walking everything intentionally. He's giving thumbs up to the Donald verbally and emotionally and in the press, but he's undermining Donald Trump by slow walking everything. What have they accomplished in the last 11 weeks they've been there? And the answer is hardly anything. A couple of appointees have been confirmed. They got that Lincoln Riley Act done. They've spent a ton of money and haven't decreased a penny. They'll, pass the big omnibus spending bill. They'll work on DOJ savings later, says Mike Johnson. I mean, they're literally undermining everything the president's trying to accomplish. Now, that doesn't mean Donald's perfect. I'm just saying he's been trying on a lot of fronts. And without Congress, though, it's DOA, sir.
Well, the Department of Education is a prime example of that. That was legislatively created back in 1979 by Congress.
So it's got to be legislatively shut down. It stands to logic, right?
Everything that Trump is trying to do on that thing, and he's putting Linda McMahon saying they want to shrink it, and they're probably half the staff they've got. But honestly, this is a very big web that we've become entangled in. and all of the fear-mongering that's going on. This is going to be a hard-fought battle because of education, again, the 10th point of the Communist
And I don't even know at
Manifesto.
this point if Trump is truly trying to do this, or if they know it's a sham, or if he's really trying and Congress is just undermining him. And I mean, it's hard to know who's who as well.
Yeah, it is. But this is going to take a battle in the trenches, and it ain't over yet. And we're going to have to watch this very carefully.
Y'all better demand your members of Congress double down and jettison and shut down the Department of Education, or every next election they go bye-bye. Until Americans get that serious, ain't going to change, people. The only kind of change I support is repentance. We the people need to repent and turn to God Almighty. And the sooner we do that and embrace God, family, and country and the protection of life, liberty, and property, using the supreme law of the land as our way back to preserve the nation, in other words, that's the only way forward, if you will. FreedomsRisingSun.com, LovingLiberty.net. God save the Republic.